Formation continue on their trajectory, gaining speed as they head directly towards the sun.
Now, good morning.
Good morning.
Gilbert.
Morning. Morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Gilbert, come up.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Morning.
Mnanipata?
Yes, sir.
Gilbert, much I wanted to confirm that you are getting. I wanted to confirm. Say this time we shall not continue with the syllabus, but instead.
Biology.
So this is what we are going to discuss today. We are to revise that paper there. So we shall start with the first question, and then I expect that you have people participating. Where you have a question, you can feel free to ask. So the first question is those ones joining, welcome so that we continue. So the first question there is saying, name the tissues in plants. Can we start now? So for this lesson, we only discuss we revised this question paper that was done by another school just this time. So we shall discuss this paper, and then tukimaliza, we shall have to look at another one. The next time we can go through whatever we were discussing last time. So the first question is, name 3 tissues in plants that provide mechanical support. You remember, this is about transport. When we talked about transport in Form 2, we discussed about some support, and I was expecting that we have it interactive, so that, let me try to see. Those ones joining, welcome. So where you have a problem, you can just raise up your hand. Then, yes, Ken? So the tissues in plants that provide mechanical support, in this case, we have, sorry, I'm just admitting some few people here. Then we mute them. We mute them so that we don't have disturbance. Hello. I'm in class. I'll call you later. I'm in class. I'll call you later. Okay. And I think people should be joining. Let question 1, name the 3 tissues in plants that provide mechanical support. Any trial before we move, we get the right answer? Any trial? You can just raise up your hands. I'll be able to see you. So the first one, it's challenging to are the tissues in plants. Turgidity in plants, giving the strength in plants is normally contributed by the presence of water in that tissue. So these are the tissues that contain water, and in the one of them, actually, then we have just a minute. Now I'll not allow more. So that we move on. So we have cholenchyma as a tissue. We have the xylem vessel as a tissue in the food web. We comprising of several food chains that we have the flow of energy in linear form. That's a food chain. Take for example, just come plants are being eaten by any animal that feeds on plants, for example, like. But I'll have to stop admitting so that we can. So I was saying that we have the
you want?
Don't say I didn't warn you.
So we can go on. We can go on from, sorry for the network failure. We can go on. We are looking at question 2, and we said that the question is saying, state the mode of feeding of a line in the food web. And I was trying to explain that normally in any food web, we have several food chains connecting together. We can start, for example, with producers. Take, for example, green plants. Then green plants are being fed on by any animal, say a cow or a goat. Then the goat is being eaten by another animal. But in this case, we have several combination of food chains so that they make up food web. So the question is saying, in the in that food web, you assume you have this food web. What is the mode of feeding of a lion? Basically, the lion feeds by which mode? Don?
Yes.
Which mode of feeding is that that one of the lion, the food web?
Is the secondary consumer.
Oh, very right. So when you talk about secondary consumer, that's called feeding level, trophic level. So company trophic level, we can talk about secondary consumer, it's right. But when it comes to the mode, secondary it's the mode, it's the trophic level, feeding level. But we are asking about the mode. I can see people are raising up their hands. Boden. Any other person raising up the hand? Raphael?
Carnivorous.
Carnivorous and not carnivore. Then we can go on. Name the fluid that's produced by sebaceous glands. This is about the topic of excretion, and basically this is on the structure of the skin. You remember the parts of the skin? Hata anainua mikono. Sami Mushiri.
Sebum.
Sami, you can read to ask the next question.
Name the end product of light stage in photosynthesis.
We know during that photosynthesis, during the light stage, we say that photosynthesis normally takes place in two phases. We have light stage where water is split, and in the dark stage where there is formation of now the real products, where there is formation of the real products of photosynthesis. Maybe someone will tell us what happens during the light stage of photosynthesis first. What happens during the light stage of photosynthesis? Somebody? Before we look at the product, what happens during the light stage? Somebody's raising up the hand here. This is Borden. Kidogo to Borden.
The chloroplast. The chloroplast attracts the sunshine, which is then converted to hydrogen ions and oxygen through a process called photolysis.
But you can say what traps sunlight? But then see chloroplast ni organelle, na hiyo organelle iko na molecules called chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is the one that traps sunlight and then converts that sunlight into chemical energy. And that chemical energy is normally used to split the water molecules, whatever we call photolysis, into hydrogen ions and oxygen gas. What is the question, Soma swali venye nasema?
Name the end product of light stage in photosynthesis.
So what is the end product?
Hydrogen ions.
Hydrogen ions and oxygen gas.
Yeah.
Question next. Name 4 ways in which respiratory surfaces are suited to their function. These are characteristics in introduction to respiration in form 2. Hata kwa gaseous exchange. Before you look at how gaseous exchange is able to take place, we look at characteristics of a good respiratory surface to facilitate gaseous exchange, intake of maybe carbon dioxide or intake of oxygen. Nasema carbon dioxide, hoping that you know sometimes during the day, plants can take in carbon dioxide. So what are some of the characteristics? One person can give us 2 of them. People are raising, this one's raising up the hands. Abel.
So one of the characteristics is that gases exchange must be moist so as to dissolve. Gases exchange must be moist so as to dissolve the respiratory gases.
Man, we are talking about gaseous exchange surface must be moist, right?
Another one is that the gaseous respiratory surfaces must be well vascularized or must have a dense network of blood capillaries so as to increase the surface area for the division of respiratory gases.
Very true. That gaseous exchange surfaces must be well vascularized. That is to say that it must have numerous blood capillaries to increase the surface area for transportation of gases. Somebody else to give us the remaining 2? Somebody else? Those ones raising up the hands in the Kinanani? Collins Mwenda?
They should have large surface area for maximum diffusion.
They have large surface area. What else?
Permeable to respiratory gases.
It's okay. What else? What about the membrane? So basically, right? So all that we've discussed is there. So basically, we look at the respiratory gases here. First, characteristics of surface, and one of them we've said, one, that they for maximum diffusion of gases, they are highly vascularized. Here. Soma number 4, so that kidogo tu I want to stop. Abel, Soma question 4. No,
Number 4.
Question 5.
Question 5. Question 6. Number 6.
Question 6.
Yeah. Distinguish between diffusion and osmosis. Distinguish between diffusion and osmosis.
One time I remember Right. One time when we were in school, I remember Mr. Kabara trying to discuss about diffusion and osmosis, and we said, in case Abel, in case my line goes off, you continue discussing the questions, that because the questions will remain there. So I was saying that I remember Mr. Kabara saying, when you are told to differentiate, then you are supposed to differentiate to this in definition terms. Distinguishing, we are going to give here to look at what are the differences between. I want to know this person here. What are the difference between the gaseous, osmosis and diffusion? Somebody raise up your hand. Duncan. Sorry, we have so many people that have. Ferdinand.
So diffusion is the movement of ions from a highly concentrated place to a lowly concentrated place. While osmosis is the movement of water molecules from a place of high concentration to a place of low concentration through a semi-permeable membrane.
Very right. Now you only 2 marks. So when you are told to distinguish, you are to define them. Like he's trying to say, osmosis is the movement of water molecules, for example, from their region of high concentration to their region of low concentration through the semi-permeable membrane. Ferdinand has said, while osmosis, on the other hand, so while diffusion is the movement of substances from the highly concentrated region to a lowly concentrated region. Were the question asking about differences, differentiate between, then we get a T table and we say, if it were looking at differences, what are some of the differences? We've just defined them. What are some of the differences? People can raise up their hands and say. What are some of the differences? Click on that icon for reaction, I'll see. What are the difference between water osmosis and diffusion? Collins. Collins.
Diffusion does not require a semi-permeable membrane, but in osmosis it requires.
Any other person? Gilbert?
Osmosis only occurs in water molecules, while diffusion occurs in all kinds of molecules.
When we talk about osmosis, basically we are referring to water molecules movement. But when we talk about diffusion, it can occur in any substances, and osmosis can also occur in water. Can also occur in any. And you remember in school we normally use that one for potassium permanganate in distilled water, and still it will diffuse. And you just place in there salt, not salt, soap. After some, you'll get it spreading. Any other person? Brighton.
Yes.
Yes, you're raising up your hand.
Diffusion occurs from high concentrated region to low concentrated region, while osmosis occur between hypertonic and hypotonic solutions.
Very right. So my next question, Brighton. Kidogo tu, Brighton, kidogo tu. Please, Form 3, before we share the questions. Huyo mtu anajaribu, I don't like, I told you people to mature up. Like I've now so far removed 3 people wale walikuwa na share hiyo nonsense, and I've even written their names here. So what do you gain? Can you behave like like even Form 2s are doing? So wale watu wanaandika, why can't you just settle down and remain? So you keep on writing something here, I remove you from the class, then you don't not just removing you, I'll make sure it's followed up for to your parent. Vitu nyingine show some maturity in you. Show some maturity in you, stop writing the nonsense that you can be able to write. Have Brighton Soma. Anyone can read Abel Soma?
Number 7. An experiment was set up as below. Study it and answer the questions that follow. So the experiment is there. And then the first question, it says the setup was left for 20 minutes.
Let's go through this experiment first of all. What is found where, because we need to look at this, the membrane there, we need to look at what is inside, what kind of solution before we move on. So take us through what is inside in the setup.
So with the setup, we can see the beaker. Inside you have a whisking tubing containing sucrose solution. And then in the beaker, we have distilled water.
So what are we expecting?
There, we're expecting that the sucrose solution the amount of water in the sucrose in the whisking tubing will increase, while the sucrose solution will not come out from the whisking tubing.
Teddy, you are raising up your hands. You have something? Teddy? We can go on. And the level unasema?
I was saying that the expected results there, the amount or the content in the whisking tubing will increase, while the sucrose solution will not come out of the whisking tubing, or will not dilute the water out.
Yeah, so you look at inside, we have sucrose solution. Sucrose is an example of disaccharide. These are carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. So that means that because of its concentration, it will make this one here to be hyper compared to the distilled water. So we are expecting that osmosis will take place. And that's how we define osmosis in 2 ways. That water molecules will move from their region of high concentration. The region of high concentration here, iko hapa, in the beaker, into the whisking tubing. So unaona hapa ndani tuko na sucrose na maji. So the concentration of water molecules is low as compared to the water alone, distilled water alone, because this is pure water. So you can say osmosis is involving movement of water molecules from their region of high to low. Bado tunaweza define osmosis as movement of molecules from lowly concentrated. Another man will talk about hypotonic to hypertonic solution through the semi-permeable membrane of the whisking tubing, like Abel is trying to say. Why is osmosis said to be a special type of diffusion? Because it involves movement of molecules from their region of high concentration to their region of low concentration. Very okay. So the setup was left for 20 minutes. State the expected results. Unafaa to talk about the movement of water, the whisking tubing increasing its content. Explanation. Kwa tunasema kitu ya kwanza to explain, usiseme tu water molecules move. First of all, give the environment. The second of all, you give the physiological process. And the third thing, you talk about the effect. So what is the environment? If I was explaining this, what's the environment? What sucrose solution is hypertonic as compared to distilled water. That's the environment. Therefore, what is the physiological process? Water molecules will therefore move from the whisking tubing, from the beaker to the whisking tubing through the semi-permeable membrane by osmosis. This will lead to increasing the content in the whisking tubing. And there you are. Question 2, I want us to finish to move on. Question 8, somebody else read. Not fanya hivi mtu mmoja anasoma maswali mbili ukitupea answers. Board, people are raising up hands, so acha tuanze na Brian Kimtai.
Give the function of the following cell organelles. Ribosome.
Brian kidogo tu. So Edwin is there, you will read the next. Alafu mwingine anaitwa Sami. You'll also read the next. Josephat baadaye. So let's start with Brian first. Twende haraka Brian. Kimtai.
Give the function of the following protein synthesis. Then lysosome, it secretes lactic acid, lactic enzymes, which
right? Ribosomes, we talk about site. Similar to protein synthesis, the place, space, site for protein synthesis or lysosomes, they produce lytic enzymes that, like you are saying, that give destroy worn out cell organelles. And then number 9.
Name the type of carbohydrates, polysaccharides found in the following parts of living organisms. In this exoskeleton of arthropods.
Exoskeleton. Which polysaccharide is that? Chitin. Niganio. Yes. Chitin. Then in the xylem vessel.
Lignin.
Lignin. In the animal blood.
Glucose.
Glucose ni carbohydrate, but ni monosaccharide. Nakumbuka types of monosaccharides. Glucose, galactose, fructose.
Glucose.
Sasa hapa tunaambiwa the one that is in ile iko na polysaccharide, a complex. So it is glucose but stored in a form of glycogen. I can see one man has done it there. Next question, who wants to read number 10? Tumesema ni nani? Soma tu nini? Edwin, soma. Edwin. Somebody else? Inueni mikono. Edwin, you are raising up your hand. Don't speak up. Another person can take us through. Josephat.
The diagram below represents
a transverse section through a plant organ. Study it and answer the questions that follow. The diagram is there. So we have part M, part P, part N, and part Q. From which plant organ was the section obtained?
Hiyo ni gani?
The root.
The root.
Yes.
The root. Alafu watu huwa sometimes unajua kidogo tu, sometimes umeulizwa tu from which plant organ, alafu mtu anaweza confuse hapo uandike no, you want to look like it's better by writing the dicot or monocot root or dicot root. So if you are not sure of which the class in which it belongs, so uandike to the root and you move on. However, you can go on and give the specific. Kama hii, look at the arrangement. The root tunajua because of the presence of the root hairs. But when you look at the arrangement of these vascular bundles here, that one is a monocot root. Lakini you don't need to talk about monocot or dicot if you are not sure of it. Endelea. Josephat, tunaendelea.
Yes, part B. Name the parts labeled Q, Q, N, and P. So Q is the root. N.
Q is the?
Q is the root. Root hair.
Roots. Root hair, right?
Root hair. And N is the phloem. And P is the xylem.
We agree with you. Move on.
How are leucocytes adapted to their functions?
Leukocytes.
Leukocytes adapted to their functions. This one I don't know.
Very good. What are leukocytes? Let's have somebody. These are types of blood cells. Nataka ukumbuke. Thank you, Josephat, for that. I want you to remember the other terms that are used to refer to these blood vessels. Red blood cells are known as. Acha tupate mtu mmoja atuambie zote. Red blood cells. Raise up your hands. Who is this who are raising? Brighton. Brighton.
Yes.
Chakue wale wengine.
Yes.
Moire. Red blood cells. Tupeleke pole pole. Red blood cells ni?
Erythrocytes.
Right. White blood cells?
Leukocytes.
Leukocytes. Platelets?
Thrombocytes.
Melchizedek? Thrombocytes. So hapa swali inauliza tukiurahisi. Look at the white blood cell. What role does it play? Alafu inasema what is the adaptation of white blood cell? Which features does it have? Leukocytes are white blood cells. Somebody raising up the hand. Abel?
The white blood cells exhibit amoeboid movement, which enables them to pass through the cells of the cells of capillary to the affected parts. So they have the amoeboid movement.
That's the point number one. Josephat, I hope unaipata that.
Yes.
Because white blood cells will move all through to where we have the pathogen.
Yes.
Lakini the pathogen is inside the tissues. If it is straight, haitaifikia. and then so that it can be able to turn around and coil around to get onto the pathogen inside the tissue. So number one, they are able to take up that shape of amoebic movement, like he's saying, it's right. Number two, Borden. Victor ikuwa kidogo tu.
They contain phagocytes that defend the body by engulfing and digesting foreign materials.
Very smart. Sometimes ikishaifikia hiyo pathogen, it contains what you call phagocytes. You know what phagocytosis is? You know it's moving and then it can be able to engulf that pathogen by using, so ni kusema ya kwanza Abel ametuambia it can be able to move by specific shape. Ingine Borden anatuambia once it gets there, it can be able to take another shape of phagocyte so that it can be able to engulf that pathogen and digest it. And that one is known as phagocytosis. Huyu jamaa anaitwa Victor. Victor, you had raised up your hand. Tuendelee, somebody else to read next question. Question 12, question maswali mbili, somebody. Who is taking us through question 12? Muridi. Muridi. Muridi raises up the hand, cannot talk. Brighton amesoma. Peter Kagwe.
The diagram below illustrates the diagram below illustrates the structure of a gill from bony fish. Name the structures. Question A. Name the structures labeled A, B, and C and give their functions.
Peter. Yes. Somebody is raising up the hand. Peter.
A is Gilbert. B, gill filament. B is gill rakers.
Unasema hapa ni Gilbert. Endelea.
Gill filaments. B, gill raker.
Gill rakers, right?
And C, gill filaments.
Gill filaments, very smart. Right, and the line question part B.
The functions.
In what ways are the structures?
In what ways are the structural labels adapted to their somebody?
In what ways are the structures labeled C adapted to their function?
They
In what
are
ways?
elongated to increase.
Alan lesson nisaidie tumalize lesani. We are looking at lesson and we are looking at adaptations of the gill filaments.
Yes, the gill filaments are elongated to increase the surface area for absorption of respiratory gases. They are also highly vascularized to increase the absorption of the gases.
And
they are also well ventilated. They are also well ventilated.
They are also well ventilated. But then we can also talk about highly vascularized, but we said because it's in water, you cannot talk about them being moist, because in water, oxygen is already in a dissolved form. I love this point of being numerous, because sababu imepoint kwa mbili, we can say they are numerous because it's pointing at 2. But if it was only pointing on 1, we cannot say they are numerous. Let's answer question 13 and question 14 quickly.
Question 13. Which substance accumulates in the muscles when respiration occurs in the absence of oxygen? Lactic acid.
Which one is that?
Lactic acid.
It's right and left.
Part B. Which physiological changes occurs in the body that enable the body to break down the substance named in A above?
Assuming lactic acid has been formed already in the body, which physiological changes are going to occur to make sure that this lactic acid is suppressed, is removed? But of course, it's not removed from the body, but it's suppressed. Which ones? Any other person?
There will be a faster heartbeat rate.
Right, increased rate of heartbeats, right, Ingine? Increased rate of breathing. Rate of breathing. Heartbeat in an increase, rate of breathing also increases. Newton Mutevye. Endelea lesson umalizie number 14.
Number 14. The product of anaerobic respiration in plants. Ethanol, energy, and carbon dioxide.
And here you, Ted Mutie, you're raising up your hand once.
Part 2. In animals, there is energy, carbon dioxide, and lactic acid.
Lactic acid, right.
Carbon 4.
And
Part B, explain the term. Question 14B. Explain the term basal metabolic rate.
By the way, what's basal metabolic rate? Raphael Misioka, you are raising up your hand.
Energy released when it's rest.
Raphael?
It is the energy produced by an animal when resting in order to maintain its life processes.
The minimum amount of energy, the minimum amount of energy that's normally produced. Kidogo tu, naona moto yangu inaisha.
Huko shule ndio natuongelea kioko ama hapo hapo kwa side hapo chini.
So we said that this is the minimum amount of energy that is required by an animal just to maintain its normal functioning. Like he's trying to say. Next questions. Nani alikuwa na Rafael, soma next question.
Name 3 organic waste products in plants.
Nitakugonga toka. Hapo unanisumbua toka. Toka wewe ndio unanisumbua. Kusikia.
Repeat.
Name 3 organic waste products. Name 3 organic waste products in plants.
Organic waste products. Let me see somebody. Ina hiyo muandike. Which ones?
Tannin.
I'm trying to look for those ones with the raising up the hands. Tannins. Gums. Number 2, gums. And resins. Question question 16. Rafael, malizia number 16.
Give the advantages of excreting nitrogenous waste products in the form of uric acid as compared to urea.
Why do you think is the advantage of excreting nitrogenous waste in the form of uric acid instead of urea? Huyu nani anainua mkono? Farah?
Cheers.
Farah, we can hear you. Robert?
It requires less amount of water. It requires less amount of water to dissolve the uric acid as compared to urea.
Uric acid is easily soluble. It's not toxic, so it requires very little water to be excreted since it's more soluble. But urea, it's more complex, so it requires more water to dissolve before it is excreted. I just want to take you through these questions quickly because I can see our time is up. So that if there's any question you want me to discuss, one can raise up the hand and discuss. Question 7 inasema, what is homeostasis? That one is right. State the importance of ultrafiltration in the nephron of a human being. What's the importance of this ultrafiltration? It's going to support the to facilitate absorption of only useful substances in the body. In the body. Name the hormone whose deficiency may lead to excretion of glucose in urine. Somebody, which hormone whose deficiency ni kusema when it's less, it will lead to production of urine with the glucose. Robert.
Pardon.
Robert, unasema nini?
Pardon, I've not heard what you're saying.
I've said the question is saying that you name the hormone whose deficiency will lead to production of urine with glucose. Kumaanisha, when it's less, you can be able to pass out urine that has a lot of glucose. Which hormone will be less? Ted Mutie.
I'm not sure.
Anybody? Austin? So that is insulin, we know that. Then finally, the last question as we stop. Name the hormone that controls reabsorption of sodium ions in the body. That one is aldosterone. So in our next, somebody's raising up the hand, maybe you have a question. Maybe they have the questions. So in our next lesson, tutaendelea revise about asexual reproduction. So for your next lesson, we shall still go on because here asexual reproduction, it can take only 30 minutes to look at the structure of the flower, after which we can be able to look at another part of the sexual reproduction that is in human beings. Then tukishamaliza, we shall revise another paper. So tutakuwa tunasoma moja, tuna revise paper moja. Tunasoma moja, tuna revise paper moja. Otherwise, stay safe. Thank you so much for your cooperation and God bless you. You can now leave the meeting.
Thank you, teacher.
Bye. Simu, mam, simu hapana.